Hello, welcome to day 4. We are almost to the finish line. Welcome. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever day or time you are tuning in. I am so happy that I could share this teaching and decrees with you. So welcome to day 4 of Decree 123, where we are recalibrating ourselves by reprogramming the world, our inner world primarily, with our words, with our voice. We are moving in decrees. We are operating from our kingdom assignment. And I know that sounds like such a catchy church phrase, right? Like, oh, a kingdom assignment. Oh, my godly purpose, right? Now, I am not trying to speak in language that's going to put your brain in a perception of a box, in a space. I'm simply just using language that is true. If you are a believer, then you get to decree and establish things with your words. But if you are a human being, whether you are a believer or not, you get dominion. But this experience is for those who are choosing to yield their power and their dominion to God's purpose for their life and the will of God that they are called to walk out. So I'm super excited about day 4 because we are talking provision and strategy. So today is a teaching heavy day. We do have our decrees, but we are going to begin to wrap up this beautiful 5-day experience. And to me, this is like the most important teaching because as we move into a new year, as we have the opportunity to move in our purpose and walk in our gifts and do all the things we desire, provision is something that's necessary. Can I get an amen? And so is strategy. So I really want to teach on that before we decree. Today, I actually have back-to-back pages of notes. So I'm going to move quickly and excuse any brevity because I'm not going to explain as much as I'm going to state some things that are going to shift your mind. Now, I do love to explain, so I'm going to pause and try not to elaborate too extensively, much like I'm doing now, because I want you to stay in flow and be prepared to move forward in those decrees with greater authority, with greater focus. And yeah, let's go. So when I talk about provision and strategy, I'm talking about you shifting from survival thinking. And in our current reality, that is quite literally where most institutions want you to dwell. Most of the rhetoric is about survival, not moving in your purpose, not moving in what God has called you to do, not operating by faith, but how can I survive? And if you are doing well enough to survive, you're thinking about how can I preserve whatever you were able to establish as your lifestyle. So our opportunity today is going to give us the ability to lean into some truth. We're going to start with our meditation, and the word for today that we're leaning into is wisdom. So wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, right? So we're going to begin to release any urgency that we sense, that we feel, whether that's in our tummy, in our heart, in our mind, in our calf muscles, anything that is keeping you moving without clear strategy, without clear direction, just to kind of scurry and hurry to collect and to preserve. Let's just release that. Let's just release that. You can move your arms around, and we're just going to enter that stillness, that holy pause. You can stretch a little bit. I want you to let go of the pressure to survive and allow for truth and wisdom to quiet any anxiety. And I want to remind you right now that provision flows where wisdom is leading in your life. We all have our own portion of wisdom. We all have our own unique experiences. So let's just meditate on wisdom and release anything that's causing us to strive or move ahead of the knowledge and truth that we need to be grounded in. All right, I think we're there. So again, our theme for today is provision and strategy. So provision responds to our alignment, not anxiety. It responds to our alignment, not anxiety. Be anxious for nothing. God provides instruction before he plans to increase you in any area of your life. There's always going to be instruction because there is always a greater intention behind anything that we are tasked to do. And strategy reduces all unnecessary striving. Many people are striving. They are moving in their unique portion of energy, however they make up that energy, whether it's their spiritual fuel that they're taking in, whether it's their physical fuel, however they are preserving their energy to pour it out. A lot of people are moving in striving. They're not flowing in wisdom. Moving in striving, not flowing in wisdom. So you have to understand that wisdom gives you restraint. It gives you an opportunity to have that stillness, that pause, so you can operate from the place where you know why you're moving in the direction. What's your why? The moment your why seeps itself into the bedrock of fear, of lack of worry, then you're operating in that striving energy, which reduces the strategy of you operating in wisdom. All right? So God doesn't just give us resources, he gives us instructions. Even with the idea to do this, decree 1, 2, 3, that visual I saw in my imagination, in my spirit, I moved on it. I took the instructions and I moved forward with it. So I want to really go into some of the things we're picking up and experiencing, because decrees can sound fluffy. I think I talked a little bit about operating from a decree mindset when you are stating affirmations. I think affirmations are beautiful. I think a lot of people believe that they are decreeing, but I think it's important that we use wisdom and recall on the power and authority we have before we even start doing it, which is why I lean into meditation to align us with these unique fruits of the Spirit, right? I want us to flow with the attributes of the Spirit as we state these things. So what is draining a lot of people is not what is supposed to be feeding you. What drains you may not be what feeds you. What does that mean? I'm gonna break it down. So right now there is a lot of misidentification of provision. Many people assume that if it takes a lot out of me, it must be valuable. If I'm tired afterward, it must be meaningful. If it's hard, God must be in it. Or there may be warfare, or our brains go in all sorts of direction. Or this is what I need. I need to go through something difficult to get to something good on the outside of this situation. All these narratives we have in our head. But I wrote this down and I'm going to read it very specifically. Most of that mindset, that misidentification of provision, what we think moving in provision is, our physical behavior that we're supposed to dwell in, most of it stems from the sociological constructs around us. If we just lean into capitalism, right? Not whether or not it's right or wrong, but if we lean into the system of it, and the social beliefs we have around it, doing what it takes to elevate our financial class without always honoring what God wants us to do to position ourselves in the kingdom class is where a lot of people are spending their energy. It's so much output to sustain what you've built in the physical realm if that vision is bigger than the vision you have in your mind for who you are assigned to be in relationship with, what your identity is, how you're operating in your authority. You see how it all comes together, what you're doing with your voice and your alignment. So I want you to consider this. We don't want to operate our lives without the proper fuel. This experience is about realigning, recalibrating ourselves so we can operate from the proper perspective of what should be fueling us. And your own words are fueling you. You may not realize it, but what you are speaking is not just about sowing and reaping on the exterior. You're conditioning your brain to believe those things, to stay in those patterns, to stay in those, not only the frequency of the type of conversation you're having, because that regulates your energy flow. If it's something joyous, you're elevated. If you're moving in love, it's elevated. If it's harshness and striving and provision, it doesn't matter if you're doing good. Operating from that place internally will take that power down a notch. You're at a lower level belief. So your frequency isn't as high as if you're moving in the truth of what provision is actually supposed to be for you. Look outside of this natural realm and the constructs of the world and get back to an understanding of who you truly are and where you are supposed to show up and show out for the God that you serve in excellence. So when you consider provision in the kingdom, I have a few points here. It's going to flow through your obedience, which is why on day 3, just yesterday, we spoke decrees about relationships and assignments because we want to be obedient to where we belong and who we're supposed to be connected to. It sustains itself by way of wisdom. And wisdom is not only receiving knowledge, it's you being still enough to hear from God, to move in truth that's embedded in the spiritual direction God is shifting you in. Wisdom is not just how to operate well in the systems of the world. And it multiplies in order when you can get clear and see what you're assigned to, what your authority is, what your voice does, where you belong in your assignment and in your relationships, then the order of the provision gets the opportunity to flow and store itself. So I want you to consider the scripture we all know, the blessing of the Lord, make it rich and it adds no sorrow with it. And I want to really explore what sorrow means. Sorrow is that strain, it's that anxiety, it's that depletion that comes alongside with what you believe you're doing to get the proper provision for your life. I don't even need to start talking about the systems. You all already know what I'm talking about. Most people believe as I rise up, I must lose myself. I must become the performance of the role in whatever construct I've decided to plant myself. I'm losing the truth of my intention and the realization of the power of my identity by assimilating. So I want us to loop this all in, but I'm going to start by saying you need to stop falling into overperformance. You got to stop yourself. We're decreeing, so this is about our own restraint. And that performance is the hustle. It's code switching, not being your true self. It's moving in that striving mentality. Striving is totally different from aligning and moving in flow. And you have to stop operating in over escape. There's over performance to get the thing and over escape to relieve yourself of the pain of not showing up as your authentic self in the provision you believe you need to perform for. I'm going to pause on that. And that over escape looks like this constant self-care culture, avoidance and numbing. You know, people are so surprised that I have not spent one night away from my daughter. I know it just seems so shocking, but I'm just not ready yet. I don't have a reason to be away from her yet. I don't need to get away from her. I got to regulate myself. I can't have this constant self-care mindset to the point where I'm not giving to the one that came from me. All right, I'm not going to go there. I think you all hear me. I'm talking about a natural child, but truly I'm talking about the spiritual things we're called to do, the ideas, the dreams, the visions that come up in our imagination, that consistently come up every time we get closer to God, that we run from because of the comfort of how we want to steward provision in our own life, and the rat race up the ladders that we are all watching be dismantled politically from institutions. There is a redirection back to the flow of our authentic authority and power in this season. So I'm going to do a quick summary looping in day 1, 2, and 3, and you can go back and watch the replays, but this is a great place to start. Just listening to me here. And again, I'm going to read it so I can stay focused. I got a couple of more minutes, and then we're going to go into those decrees. So with day 1, we explored identity and alignment, but we meditated in the realm of grace and unmerited favor, because provision follows who you believe you are, not just what you do. And a lot of people short-circuited the power of their belief by only believing for provision in systems that are very easy to process and evolve and assimilate into, not their authentic selves. So that's why we spoke from the realm of identity and alignment, because we want our provision to flow from the truth of who we believe we are, not just what we do. If identity is unstable, provision becomes a way to prove your worth. We don't want to operate in who we are just to prove we're worthy. But when we are settled, provision becomes a tool, not a burden for what it's assigned to do. Day 2, how that loops into this theme of provision. Day 2, we talked about authority and voice, and we dwelled and meditated in the realm of peace. Day 2 was probably one of my favorite days because it fell on Martin Luther King's Day. And how you speak determines how you steward your provision. You first steward it with your words, which is why when people say, "Who are you?" people start going with all of the titles, right? Because that's how they're stewarding what they are providing to the world. Provide, root word, provision, provide, what you are providing, how you are stewarding your life. But when you don't pay attention to your words, provision gets consumed by the pressure of your life, and that's that over-escaping. But God offers us peace that will govern our voice so we can begin to speak what's true. That's why we're decreeing. That's why we're establishing new things, so that provision begins to move with wisdom, not fear, not striving for a place in the system, but wisdom as it relates to where you are assigned to be and what you are supposed to be doing in that, what you're called to do, the relationships you're called to have. And lastly, day 3, which was just yesterday, we explored relationships and assignment, and we meditated on truth. And I talked about how we all know the truth shall set you free, but what is the truth? What is the freedom? It's being rooted not in our sociological, media-driven, institutionalized perceptions of truth, but the truth in our inner knower, in our spirit, in our gut, that tells us how to move. Truth will show you what you're obedient to. Those who like truth like to obey, right? You can't really be in obedience in your calling and in your purpose if you don't want to be the true version of who you are. And on that day, we focused on relationships and assignments. And I really want to say this before we go into the decrees. When you are misaligned in your assignment, it is the biggest drain of your provision. It doesn't matter how high up you go and whatever ladder you're climbing and whatever goals and mountains you want to conquer. If you're misaligned, you're going to be drained by that provision, which means you're going to spend that provision or hoard that provision because it has value beyond what it should, because your values aren't aligned. Most people don't have a provision problem. They have an assignment problem. Paper drop. So this is about being recalibrated. It's okay. We're coming into truth. We're being honest with ourselves. I'm sharing wisdom on the day that we're talking strategy and provision and moving forward now into the decrees so we can move in speaking this into reality, establishing it in the spirit and the earth with greater authority and intention. Are you all ready? So we are finally at our 100th decree. You all know we are going to 123. Today we have about 12, and tomorrow we'll close out the rest. I decree wisdom governs my decisions. After that teaching, doesn't that sound a little bit more powerful in your brain? I decree that wisdom governs my decisions. Those holy pauses, the truth of what I'm called to do, the person that I desire to be in the world that God has showed me in visions and dreams, the impact. I'm governed by wisdom in that provision. 101. I decree that God orders my steps with clarity, that you are moving in what you have clarity towards, what you're clear on, so your power flows, so your energy isn't based off of striving to get there, but aligning with where you belong. Your ego will be out of it. You won't even think about it. You'll just move in it. 102. I decree that I am not driven by urgency or fear. Let's repeat that 3 times. I decree that I am not driven by urgency or fear. Last one. I decree that I am not driven by urgency or fear. 103. I decree that provision flows through obedience. 104. I decree that God gives me strategy for this season. Strategy for this season. 105. I decree that I am not distracted by misaligned opportunities. Every opportunity isn't where we're called to be. Some of those doors were supernaturally open because God is sustaining you by grace. But you have a restriction on your belief of the abundance of provision that is available. I decree that I am not distracted. You will no longer be distracted by misaligned opportunities. Hey, D. 106. I decree that I recognize what to pursue and what to release. We are asking God for divine vision so we know what we should be moving towards with our energy and what we should be releasing, not only on the exterior, but the thoughts we're supposed to be releasing, the mindset we're supposed to be releasing, the doubt, the fear, the worry that we're harboring and operating in this striving mentality, when we can lean into wisdom and get truth and uproot those things. So let's repeat that one. I decree that I recognize what to pursue and what to release. 107. I decree that my resources are stewarded wisely. We're not hoarding. We're being strategic with what God has called us to sow, how he's told us to move in this earth with our gifts, with everything that we have. We're stewarding that wisely. 108. I decree that God provides instruction before increase. Anything we desire increase for, we will not move with no vision or clarity that is heavenly sent. Not just our own imagination, but how he imagines us operating in that increase. Number 109. I decree that clarity replaces survival thinking. I decree, repeat it, I decree that clarity replaces survival thinking. Clarity. I'm clear on my intent. I'm clear and I feel good about me operating in wisdom and truth and not fear and striving towards what I presume is going to sustain me. That I end up using my provision to spend and gain access to things that quite literally just keep me surviving in the situation, in the places, in the opportunities. And we have 2 more left. I decree that I move with discernment and not pressure. In this season, you are going to be able to discern. You're not going to move from pressure. You're not going to move from striving. You're going to be able to discern what to pour out your energy into. And lastly, 111, I decree that wisdom establishes stability in my life. Lord, grant me more wisdom. Give me more direction. Give me more peace. All right, so I know today's teaching was deep, was true, may have cut a little bit, even myself. But guess what? We're recalibrating. So we have to open up and release, shake off anything that you felt came up and out. Just let it go and be willing to move in proper provision and strategy. So you're operating from those godly assignments and not your worldly perspective. All right? Love you so much. See you tomorrow for our final day, day 5. Thank you for watching the replay. Bye-bye.